Here we go. Hopefully everything is resolved. Yes, things are looking better right now as we jump into Inside and Out. In the bottom left-hand corner of the map, we have the player from Red Dragons, Raza.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Inside and Out, we have the Australian Zerg player himself, representing himself as he's currently teamless. It is NXZ. The returning player himself. It's been so long since NXZ has graced us with his presence. To be fair, we did cast him over the weekend when it came to the qualifiers, but other than that, it has been years since he has touched this game competitively.
Really has. He's always kind of been there, playing a little bit more casually, just throwing out memes and what have you. He's always been watching the game as well and commentating every now and then, but it has been a while since he really buckled down and has been practicing a lot and decided, I want to take competing seriously.
Exactly, and we'll see how far he can go. Again, we were talking about it, he stumbled a little bit against Ranger. If you're in the chat, maybe let us know what happened in that series, because unfortunately we were casting at the time and we weren't able to watch Ranger versus NXZ on the mainstream, but hopefully his luck can change here. It is a bit of a different matchup, and what I will say is that Ranger has a very unique approach to PvZ, very unique. Raza, I think, a little more straight up in TVZ.
Yeah, and let's see if that's going to be enough here for NXZ to overcome. As so far, both players are opening up very, very standard, you know, just sussing each other out.
Yeah, Hatchcast pool opener here from NXZ. We have a regular opener as well from Raza, just the racks expand, nothing too crazy. He doesn't even skip his Reaper as he goes across the map to just check his opponent a little bit here. And it looks like, oh, he wants a link, but he will not get it.
Oh, will he? No, not quite. Oh, will? No, not with the queen out right now.
Yeah, some nice fancy micro here from both of our players. Just NXZ making sure he doesn't lose a single unit here in the early game. And we are going to be able to, get into a much more standard game, even more so as Raza does go for that third CC before starport.
Super economic start right now for Raza. But one that still lends itself very, very well to a bit of a timing push if he goes that way. And on swap coming down, we should just about be seeing Hellions pumped out for some map control.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll keep an eye on that racks to see if we do have a tech lab being built here, because we could see a 3cc Banshee opener coming out from Raza. Regardless, as you were saying, again, very economic. There is that tech lab, by the way. So we'll see if we have that add-on switch just to get a little bit of that map control. So yeah, just the most meta, the most standard opener from Raza, and I'm sure NXZ is happy about that, just because, again, he did have a bit of a harder time with Ranger and his weirdness.
Yeah, he needs a game or two, a map or two, to just sort of recalibrate, you know, to get his mind sane again, to breathe in and breathe out.
Woosah.
What?
Where's Milk when I need him? Don't worry about it. Oh god, and there we go. We do have that add-on switch. So this is a 3cc Banshee opener. Again, this is just you can't get more standard than this in current meta, mate. So again, because of this, Raza is going to have a little bit of map control with his Hellions. He's going to have a bit of a 1-2 punch here with his Banshees. He could either look to try and push in and get some economic damage done, or maybe combine forces with his Hellions and go for a frontal assault. Regardless, he's able to, again, just have a presence on the map.
And it's super important right now in TVZ. We already see NXZ. None of his creep tubers have been taken out, but not for lack of trying from Raza's side. There's a tumor being taken out.
Yeah, again, just poking and prodding, and NXZ doing a great job of just keeping this creep going and keeping up with the rotations of these Hellions, as he does have his Overlords in beautiful locations, just so he can rotate his Queens over whenever the Hellions do show their faces. NXZ does now have the 4th on the way, and I love it. NXZ, looking at his vision, he was able to confirm the 1-1-1 opener, the 3cc, and he is getting a safety spore here at his 4th to make sure he has detection to deal with any kind of oncoming Banshees.
Yeah, he's playing as about as greedy as he can get away with, but always making sure that he's not cutting too many corners. Ooh. There aren't that many Lings out right now, though, which can be worrisome. The Queens were not quite in position to defend, but it looks like they were able to get here in time, and Raza should not be getting any economic damage from his Hellions. In fact, he loses all of them right now.
Wow, Raza baited into a false sense of security. He assumed that there weren't going to be enough lings here, and there weren't. You were even bringing it up yourself, but we had reinforcing lings coming out at the same time. We saw the full surround. Every single Hellion goes down, and just like that, Raza has lost his map control. There is no way for him to really stop any of this creep threat other than these Banshees, and now NXZ is free to drone.
These Banshees have a lot that they need to do right now, let me tell you. Huge shoes to fill from those Hellions going down. They are, taking out a couple of lings, I guess, but that's not really the best use of your Banshees now, is it?
Yeah, it's some damage, but he wants more. There we go. One drone is going to be going down. We have spores all over the place, so the Banshees aren't going to find too much more damage than that. But at least they're still alive. There's always potential for them. They can always dive back in later on to deal even more damage. So Raza just has to do the best he can to keep these Banshees alive.
Yeah, and keep them alive, he has a surprising amount of utility you can really squeeze out from 2 Banshees later on in the game. You were mentioning he can try to go for another round of harass, sneak into a base that doesn't have too many spores on it or anti-air, but at the same time, if his micro is on point enough, which I'm not sure he wants to take that risk when he has ping, but if it's on point enough, he can use Banshees to take out a couple of Banshees that the tanks aren't able to pick off.
Yeah, it's definitely possible, The scariest thing is just the creep threat, that NXZ is getting towards the halfway point, and again, there are no Hellions to impede his progress at all. We just see a bit of a drop here that happens to be at the freshest base of NXZ, so he's here to try and force a cancel, going to be able to clear up as much of the creep as possible, but before going for the base, the Ling Bane is here to clean up this tank.
I definitely appreciate the aggression going on here, but yeah, losing the tank like that is a little bit unfortunate, to say the least.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Like, the pressure was on Raza to do something to stop NXZ from droning up to 80+ workers and getting a 5th base, and he was trying, to get me wrong, but was that really worth a tank? Nah, mate.
Apparently not. Banshees do come in once again, but now there is detection. All of the queens have come in position to defend as well. But behind all of this, Raza, he at least is forcing a couple more lings to be made from NXZ rather than workers. I say that, but as I look down at the worker count, I realize why we're not seeing any more drones being built.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, NXZ, he's getting towards that 80-85 drone count right now. This one drop has been doing a lot, actually, getting quite a number of creep tumors here in the middle of the map. NXZ should be on point when it comes to replacing them. There we go. The queens are now moving in position to throw down as many tumors as they can. But NXZ has hit that sweet spot. 82 drones. We have a hive on the way. We have 2-2 on the way. From here, we can go into whatever we want. Tech-wise, we have the Hydra Den. We can go into lurkers from here.
Yeah, NXZ has pretty much hit his late game economy, and we're not even 10 minutes in yet.
Oh, exactly.
It really just goes to show how important it was to take out those Hellions.
Oh yeah, there's a real snowball effect that can happen here in TVZ when you are safe and sound from any kind of aggression. We saw a little bit of drop play there, but only a little bit. Raza, to be fair, he isn't out of this game. Like, sure, NXZ is free to be relatively greedy and economic, but Raza, he's also looking to expand. He's also building up his main force. Looking at the units tab, he now has 5 tanks, soon to be 7 tanks, and that's ideal. Like, you ideally want a tank-based army, especially against Ling Bane Hydra Lurker. And there is that Lurker Den.
Yeah, synced up very, very nicely to that hive as well. And like I said, surprisingly, he has kept a little bit of supply available. He didn't max out as quickly as possible, so he will be able to get those Lurkers in pretty soon.
Yeah, he's got some options here. I think right now he wants a more mobile army, and I'm sure he wants the hive upgrades for his lurkers once the lurker den finishes. Lair tech lurkers can sometimes be a little bit of a meme.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he just wants to trade as best he can, maybe pick off a couple of tanks and then transition.
Raza's attention unfortunately was elsewhere in that scenario. He did lose every single Marine to those Banelings, and he will lose a couple of tanks as well. NXZ, he's trading out his Ling Bane, but that's exactly what he wants.
Yeah, exactly. At the same time on the left-hand side, we see NXZ running into a wall of tanks, a wall of depots. Raza does hold very well here, but earlier he did end up losing 2 of those tanks. Right now, NXZ is waiting for the moment. He's waiting for the moment that Raza does switch up his composition, that maybe the tank count gets a little bit too low, and then he can go into lurkers.
Yeah, it's important to note right now for Raza, he did keep that 4cc alive at the very least. And he does have it fully saturated, or pretty much fully saturated, so he's not hurting economically for the time being.
Yeah, but the problem is that Raza, because of his playstyle, because of the early game, he's completely given up map control. Look at the creep. It's slowly creeping onto the bases of Raza. We can see NXZ even taking one of Raza's bases, looking to maybe even take both of them. And Raza can't really do anything right now. As soon as he pushes out, he essentially pushes onto creep.
Yeah, it really takes a 5th base. If you're going to be playing this playstyle in TVZ, then I think a 5th base is what you need as a Terran player to really sustain yourself and to really be able to reinforce your army that's trading efficiently. But the fact that NXZ is completely preventing Raza from taking one, this bodes really well for a Zerg player.
Yeah, and you can argue that Raz is pretty well fortified, but that's until the Vipers come in. We do have the Blinding Clouds being thrown down on every single one of these tanks. 3 tanks are remaining, though. The Blinding Clouds are running out, and it looks like, oh, the Banelings get into the Mineral Line.
Yeah, they do take out just about every single SCV that was mining, but now the bio reinforcements are coming in to defend. There isn't a buffer remaining anymore for these Hydras, and NXZ has not gotten lurkers out yet. Still going to be tough for Raza to push across the map, though.
Oh, yeah, because we had 82 Lings in production.
Yep.
Lings are out. Now we have our Ling Bane. We still don't have our Lurker upgrades yet. They're on the way. +1 range is on the way as well. Again, that tech switch is going to be available for NXZ for eventually, soon TM. What's important, though, is that NXZ kept his Vipers alive. They're just gathering more and more of that energy, and we're going to see another follow-up push soon, and Raza has to prepare for that. He has to rotate his tanks over.
I'm afraid to look like, but Raza has so far lost 5 tanks this game, and there aren't that many that's securing this valley right outside the natural base. Not a lot of creep over here, though, and Raza has been trading pretty efficiently, but here come those Blinding Clouds from the Vipers you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. What was that? 3? Oh, now soon to be 4 more tanks going down, and because of the tank count getting lower and lower, this is just affecting Raz's ability to push out. So even though NXZ did spend a lot of supply doing that, don't get us wrong, he has map control, he has economy, he can rebuild, and because of the creep, like, Raza just doesn't have the pushing power that he needs to apply any pressure to NXZ.
Yeah, NXZ has been sitting on such a superior economy for so long that he's kind of at a point where he can throw away as much supply as he wants, as long as he's taking out the key units, which in this case are the tanks.
Yeah, he took out a tank. He just took out 2 ghosts as well. Like, that for Lings, well worth it.
Yeah, what is that? Literally the cheapest unit in the game versus, I think, the most expensive Terran bio unit. Yeah, that's pretty worth it, to say the least.
Definitely. We do see that Raz is pushing out with a handful of these Marauders, but yeah, he knows that he cannot overextend. He cannot afford to lose any Marauders right now. Does deny some mining here at this fresh base of NXZ, but we can see that NXZ, again, he's just taking every base on the map.
Yeah, he can lose that base, and it wouldn't really hurt him economically. I feel like he has so many bases he can't even saturate all of them.
Pretty much, right? And look at this, again, creeping spread in the face of Raza right now. We do see Raza trying to force this back a little bit. He has been able to clear up some creep in the middle of the map. He is refining his army, getting more tanks and more ghosts. I do appreciate that he hasn't tried to switch into mines or anything like that. He knows what he wants. He knows what he needs. It's just, yeah, one of those things where Raza just has to turtle.
Pretty much. I mean, he is starting to break out of that turtle shell, though, a little bit. He's picked off a decent number of queens, and he really, really wants that 5th base. But now the rest of NXZ's army is starting to converge in this location. All of his bio is in a choke point that's easily blinding clouded down. But the ghosts right at the back there, the absolute MVPs, were able to chase away the Vipers and allow Raza to keep most of his army alive. Yeah,
this is where I have to wonder, was that trade a little bit too inefficient? Because this is one of the first big fights that NXZ didn't really get too much at all there. Like, the Blinding Clouds did help, don't get me wrong, but Raza had a pretty good fight.
I think that was the first fight in this game where Raza did not lose a tank. So NXZ essentially traded his supply for not a lot of value. A lot of Banelings, though, started to crash on top of the bio. And tanks, once again, are being taken out. That was most of the Bioforce available here for Raza. A couple more tanks in the backline are trying to get in position. But I think, in the end, NXZ traded a little bit better.
Definitely. I mean, it's one of those things where Raza had a good fight, then he kind of overextends himself. He leaves himself vulnerable as he tries to take a base, and then bam, NXZ pounces on that. Meanwhile, we have our first wave of lurkers. These lurkers, I don't think they're going to do too much. They're being a little bit annoying here, but there are only 4 of them, and yeah, they're going to go down as well. Like, there's a time and place for lurkers, and they're amazing, don't get me wrong, but right now is not that time.
Yeah. Now is not the time, and that 4th base location is not the place.
Yeah, the lurkers, they go down. NXZ still on just Ling Bane Hydra right now. Vipers are really what he needs to break these positions. I'm worried because he hasn't rebuilt his Vipers, but he goes in anyway.
And just like that, once again, Raza takes out a massive chunk of Lings and Banes, does not lose a single tank.
I mean, look at the siege line. We have 5-6 tanks covering this. Like, this is not the place to fight NXZ. It's especially without Vipers.
So he has 6 tanks sieged up over here, and he has 6 more tanks in the other base. Okay, now he's starting to reposition a little bit, but Raza has literally 12 tanks. A dozen tanks out right now, which is twice the amount that conventional wisdom will tell you is effective when you're playing Bio.
Exactly, and there are a couple of ways to break this. We can stick with the ground army, Ling Bane, Hydra, and then go Viper, or we can take those to the skies. We can see a transition into Double Spire, into Broodlords, and Broodlords can make really short work of this kind of army, don't get me wrong. But it's also, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of minerals and gas and investment to tech up into that Spire tech. It's a pretty hefty tech switch, and it looks like NXZ really doesn't want to go in that direction. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah, I have to wonder if NXZ's feeling a little bit tunnel visioned here. Because he got Lurker Tech pretty early on. He was getting Vipers as well. He was definitely free to get that additional tech structures you were talking about, you know, Ultra Den or Greater Spire. But he's been focusing so much on just trying to break these bases of Raza with what he has that he just has to spend his money rebuilding his army rather than teching up. Blinding callouts get thrown down once again, but there are still a couple of tanks able to shoot. Yeah. Not enough of them, it seems, though, however, because in the end, NXZ will actually get pushed back.
NXZ's going to get pushed back, but that was another great trade. He basically resets the tank count. He takes down the fresh mining base here. NXZ was waiting for Raza to reposition and spread himself too thin, and that's exactly what we saw here. We no longer saw that entrenched position at the triangular third. That was the moment for NXZ to strike, and again, he traded beautifully, and now we can see a massive disparity in that supply.
Yeah, I was pretty worried when NXZ came down and he lost pretty much all of his Lings and Banes, but once he took out that Planetary Fortress, I knew he was going to be safe.
Yeah, exactly. Raza is being starved out right now. He's slowly running out of resources, and NXZ still has plenty of mining bases, but Raza, he's not going to take this lying down. He wants to fight back. We do see a nuke here towards the top left, and ooh, NXZ notices.
Yeah, just in time to retreat. If it was a second later, then I think at least half of those drones would have been going down. Just like that, NXZ going to be able to maintain his economic lead. Raza forced to lift up an orbital command and land it in that vulnerable position right now.
And that's dangerous because that means that this base will not be a planetary. And again, right now the win condition for NXZ is to just rebuild, wait for Raza once again to try and take this base and go for another fight. Again, there's no SimCity here. The defensive position for Raza is almost non-existent.
And it may not be creep here either, but Blinding Clouds don't care about creep. GG is called. NXZ will take game number 1 very patiently.
Oh. GG, well played. What a game number 1 there. As you saw, NXZ wasn't pretty solid control of that almost that entire game. There were a couple of moments where we saw some pretty risky fights, some pretty Monka-esque fights. But NXZ, he could afford them in the end. He could afford them.
He really could. I can't help it, but I just keep thinking back to all of those Hellions.
Yeah. That was
map control, man. That's usually what you're fighting for in a TVZ, and player who has it for long, the player who has it usually ends up winning.
Yeah, NXZ, he had just had so much freedom in the early game and in the mid game as well. The only things that could really threaten him were the first wave of Hellions, the follow-up double Banshee, and that one drop that moved in towards the 5th base. That was really it. Outside of that, Raza was stuck at home. And there can be a lot of reasons for that. Raza stylistically, maybe he's not a drop-heavy player. Maybe he's more about these frontal pushes. Also, bearing in mind that Raza is playing at a ping disadvantage. You know, that's why this series was delayed by so much. You know, it is something that can come into play. It is something that can happen.
Yeah. And it definitely looked like, you know, Raza was trying to make up for that by adopting more of a defensive style there. But there's really only so much he could really do when his opponent has the entire rest of the map.
Exactly. It's like, it's one of those things where it makes sense that he would be more passive and defensive because, you know, microing and trying to split can be really difficult with high ping. It's like, sure, but I mean, that we see what happens as a result, you know? Like, it's so difficult to try and play that way in ZVT when your player is as good as NXZ.
Yeah. But we are going into our second map of this best of 3 series, and it is a map that I think Raza is going to be a little advantaged on.
Oh yeah, a very surprising map. I didn't expect this to make it through the vetoes, but game number 2 is going to be on Waterfall.
Absolutely insane. You have to look at those other vetoes once we get out of this game, because I can't believe NXZ let this through. But anyway, we are going to be continuing our series now on Waterfall. We're in the bottom left-hand corner map, starting all the way in the bottom left-hand corner. We have our red Terran player coming out from the land of the UK, representing Pakistan and Red Dragons. He is Raza.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Waterfall, we have the Australian Zerg player himself, the returning veteran. It is NXZ.
Royan, as some have taken to calling him.
Exactly, Royan, he is back. He's here, he's in form in ZVT. We can see in a longer macro game, he knows what needs to be done. He knows his win condition. But you brought it up. Waterfall is a very different map.
Yeah, one that is... The common consensus is that it's Terran favored. That's mostly because it's a fact.
Oh my god. Yaku, calm down. It's okay, Yaku's a Terran player, so he can say that. It's okay.
Exactly. I am the authority. I have authority on that.
Oh, no.
Not quite, but it does lend itself very, very nicely to tank pushes and Terran pushes as well. It's pretty difficult to take a third base on this map as a Zerg player especially, but yeah, also as a Protoss player and, you know, even as a defensive Terran player. It can be difficult to hold on to your third base because it's so isolated from the others, and yeah.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Waterfall is the smallest map in the current map pool. There aren't that many bases to take either. Like, it's a very congested map as a result. So it can be really difficult to get into the same position as we saw last game on Inside and Out. Because it's so much smaller, it can be arguably easier to defend your fringe bases because there's less room to kind of maneuver between, and it's going to be harder to be caught off guard. And as you were bringing up, you know, those pushes can be that much stronger as well. So I do expect to see a very different game here in Game 2.
As do I. Hoping for a game where, you know, I'm hoping for a game where Raza can really shine here. He is, I would say, the king of very powerful timing attacks when it comes to this region. And he was stymied a little bit in his series against T-Bull because of how well T-Bull was able to, you know, just delay all of that, and it didn't quite go his way either in game number 1 here against NXZ, just because he lost the map control so early on. I'm hoping that we get to see that side of Raza here on a map that favors timing attacks for Terran.
Yeah, I'm sure Raza is going to babysit and take care of his Hellions a lot better here in this game, but we'll see, because once again we do see a very similar opener. 3cc before Starport, once again from Raza. Do have that Starport still on the way, by the way, and if we see a Tech Lab, it should be another Banshee opener.
Yeah, if we see a Tech Lab. I don't see a reason for... Yeah, I don't really see a reason for Raza to switch things up too much here on Waterfall. But he... is not. Okay, he is not switching things up.
Yeah, there we go. We do have that tech lab on the racks. We should be seeing an add-on switch soon, TM, here between these two buildings as well. We do see the Overlord trying to support in, and ooh, Raza switching things up.
Yeah, he's actually getting the tech lab for, it appears to be earlier upgrades. I mean, I was wondering if this could be a fake out, you know, if he's going to cancel Liberator and swap add-ons around, but you wouldn't get a Liberator if you were going to fake out the Overlord.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. The Overlord dips in. The Overlord confirms that Stim is being researched as well, so he knows he doesn't have to prepare for a Banshee. He knows that he has to prepare for a Liberator or a Viking, so we should see some Spores relatively soon just to deal with those. But I'm curious as to what kind of push this is going to be, because I wouldn't be surprised if Raza does end up throwing down, I don't know, say an Armory, and we see a Hellbat push as, oh, actually, he stops he stops Hellion production.
Yeah, this is just a very non-committed, I would say, multi-prong harass coming out from Raza. Only 6 Hellions as opposed to 8 if you really wanted to commit and get some drone damage. Again, this is just to make sure he has map control with the Hellions and is able to get some harassment done with the Liberator.
Definitely. Meanwhile, Liberator's moving out. There we go. Spores are on the way. Hellions are going to be dishing out. Oh my god, a lot of damage on this 4th hatchery. Going to force a cancel.
Wow. It's so rare that you see Hellions actually force a cancel on a hatchery like that, and because they're Hellions, you know, the drone immediately gets taken out. That's even more of a delay here for NXZ. Nice little bit of value here for Raza, but can he keep his Hellions alive? He's dipping a little bit deep into creep.
Oh, yeah, exactly. He has to be careful here. He's already gotten some great value here with these Hellions, especially compared to the previous game. We'll see if he can continue to do so, as this time he does bring them back home. Wants to make sure he's safe against a run-by. Meanwhile, at the same time, the Liberator is still alive, by the way. He didn't just throw it away at the 3rd base. He's rotating around trying to find another way in. NXZ, though, he is wise to this, and he already has a Spore here in the main.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult finding a position for this Liberator. I mean, maybe the 4th base, but it's not mining just yet.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, also catching some lings off of creep as well. Raza shaving off a couple of them. Has to be careful with how he does push onto creep here. Yeah, he knows he doesn't want to throw away his Hellions once again. But back at home, we are transitioning. We already have our Stim combat shields 1-1 on the way. Already working on quite a powerful Bioforce.
Yeah, Raza's definitely feeling a lot more comfortable in this game. Economy has been untouched so far. He knows that he doesn't have to completely give up the map control and start turtling up because he has these Hellions on the map to be threatening. Yeah, he is working on that extremely potent 1-1 timing that we all, and when I say we all, I mean Terran players, love to throw out there and try to end the game before it gets to that turtle stage.
Yeah, and I'm really curious about NXZ, because NXZ is being a little bit greedy here. He has already taken his additional gases here at his 3rd base. We already have a Hydrogen as well, so he's taking it to Hydras much faster compared to the previous game, when, I'll be honest, right now we need Lingbane to defend.
Yeah, a lot of these queens acting without a buffer. A lot of them are being taken out. Overlords went down as well, so NXZ is supply blocked. Now starting to morph in a ton of Banelings, but is it too late?
We shall see. I mean, the Banelings are about to morph in, but so much has already been lost here at the 4th base. The hatchery may go down. NXZ is trying to reinforce here. The Banelings are coming in, but a little bit late.
Yeah, and Raza very wisely did not unleash his tanks. He can always just retreat back to the tanks with his Bioforce. There aren't too many links out right now for NXZ, which is worrying.
Yeah, well, the lings, they all got shaved off. Again, NXZ, he went for a little bit of a premature fight, I feel. The Link Bane is going to roll on forward, but now we have a 3rd tank. The positioning is just too good, and you were talking about these tank pushes earlier. Raza, it looks like he's going to be able to break through. Banelings are rolling on forward, but again, the tanks, the positioning is just too good.
All of the Banelings got taken out! Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, NXZ really wants to go for a multi-prong, try to catch these tanks from behind, but he doesn't have the supply to spare. I mean, Raza right now is up so much on armor supply.
He really is. The triangular 3rd goes down. NXZ was able to keep the majority of his drones alive as he does rotate over towards the left-hand side. Catches a free tank. Not a bad pickoff here. And we take those. Like, NXZ needs whatever he can right now because he's behind in the army. Raza has a lot of that momentum.
Any pickoff right now for NXZ is a good pickoff. But Raza is just making sure, as much as possible, none of his tanks do get picked off.
Oh, exactly. Here we go. Lingbane rolling on forward once again, pushing off of creep. Oh, God. Does get one of those tanks on the front line, but 3 of them in the back line take out all of the Lingbane. The Marines are stimming on forward. There's still a little bit of Lingbane remaining here. How good are the splits?
Not quite that good, but he is able to, retreat back off of creep. A lot of tanks are starting to get whittled off, though. For Raza, NXZ, with a couple of reinforcements, may be able to deflect this without losing another base.
Yeah, there was one really juicy Baneling connection there for NXZ, and he desperately needed something to go his way. Now the supplies are evening up a little bit, and NXZ, he does have a 4th base already. 5th base is on the way on the right-hand side of the map. He has been able to keep his cool the entire time, and he has enough reinforcements. Raza has to back off.
I was worried for a sec because it looked like Raza was going all in, throwing down 3 more barracks, but he is getting a 4th base right now, and he is transitioning his tech, getting more Liberators. Interesting.
Yeah, Liberators are going to be coming out. Meanwhile, the tanks get caught! Ooh, thankfully, they are both saved here by the medevac micro. At the same time, Banelings do find a couple of connections here on the Marines, sorry.
Yeah, and a nice connection on a bunch of Marines, but the rest of the Banelings will get taken out by the tanks. NXZ does not want to overextend right now. He's taking map control. He's retaking that 5th base from earlier on. He just needs to make sure he has enough to supply to defend it.
Yeah, unfortunately, NXZ, he just needs a little bit of room to breathe to get some more drones up and running. Like, the worker counts are actually almost even here between our 2 players. Again, it just goes to show how much pressure NXZ has been under. But now he's been able to weather a lot of the storm. He's been able to get away with teching up as greedily as he was. 2-2 is going to kick in. Infestation bit is on the horizon to get into Hive. NXZ, he survived.
He has, and he survived the scariest part of Raza's initial push, right? When he has all the momentum behind him. Raza still has a very potent army. He's still up on army supply, and for the time being, has better upgrades. But NXZ does have a little bit more room to breathe, does have a couple more resources, and has better tech at the moment.
Yeah, like with this,
get his army in order.
And with this room, finally NXZ has hit 80 workers. Like, this is what he's been waiting for. Going for a little bit of a Baneling run by is going to be a little bit wasteful here. Meanwhile, Liberators are harassing the fringe bases. 5 drones going down. I was praising NXZ for finally getting up to 80 workers, but alas, he is still not there.
Yeah, he got to 80, and then he immediately didn't have 80 anymore.
Exactly. He's been having a hard time dealing with these Liberators, especially with only Hydras and Queens to defend without too many spores. There are plenty of abusable locations here, and NXZ is going to try and clear them up as best he can. Hive is on the way, but a little bit late, I want to say, because 3-3 is going to be... There's going to be a window here where Raza is up on those upgrades.
On those upgrades, on that army supply, on just about everything right now. NXZ desperately needs a couple of Vipers, but he can't really get any.
Yeah,
right now. Beautiful tank volleys from Raza.
Again, a questionable engagement there from NXZ. I don't know if he really has what it takes to engage this army. At the same time, Liberator on the right-hand side. NXZ looking to try and catch some reinforcements here in the middle of the map. The run-by could do some damage. Oh god, but is he really going to dive on top of these tanks?
He's gonna try, and he's not gonna get too much out of it. A couple of Marines got taken out, but at this point, for Raza, Marines are super extendable. He's kept all of his tanks alive. He's kept his Liberators alive. You know, the units that are actually dealing damage to this army. The worst is over for Raza right now, and the worst is just beginning for NXZ.
Yeah, I mean, the tank count was left untouched. Like, NXZ had a very questionable engagement there. I don't blame him. There was a lot of pressure on him to try and keep that hatchery alive because he didn't want to give an inch. He didn't want to give an inch at all to the Terran player. But at that point, he had to, and now he's going to pay the price for it because Raza still maintains that arm. He still has a terrifying tank count. Doesn't have a lot of buffer, doesn't have a lot of support to tanks, so Raza has to be careful. He has to rebuild his Marines.
He needs a bit more of that buffer, like you were saying, and he can absolutely do that with his 11 barracks that he's got right now.
Yeah, that's a lot of axes, mate. That's a lot of production right now. Raza happily on these 4 bases, soon to be taking a 5th, just clearing out whatever creep he can in the middle of the map. Finally, 3-3 has started here for NXZ as +3 attack is about to finish for Raza. Jeez, like again, Jesus Christ. Thankfully, Raza did forget +3 armor though, so it isn't as bad as it otherwise could have been.
Yeah, that's one area where NXZ will be able to get a little bit of a lead in the army upgrades, but yeah, he still needs a lot more time to get his army in order to produce more army units and to get his tech up, but that's time that Raza is not willing to give him at all.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, NXZ, he's just trying to slow this push down. He's trying to force the sieges as best as he can to try and keep this hatchery going for as long as possible. But I think we can all see that the writing is a little bit on the wall when it comes to this base. Like, NXZ knows that he has to potentially transition soon or transfer away as the army is closing in.
Yeah, really nice kiting on this bio from Raza. NXZ really trying to choose how he wants to engage this.
The Vipers.
He does have Vipers, and he can't go for a pincer maneuver, but he is going all forward into one area. Really good blinding clouds on top of most of these tanks. But what about the tanks in the back line?
That's the thing, right? That was only half the tanks. There's so much more where that came from. That was honestly the best fight that NXZ could hope for, but we see a snipe towards the end. Another Viper goes down, and the push hasn't stopped.
For now, it's been stopped. A couple more reinforcements are popping up immediately from this base of NXZ. He needs a little bit more time to get some banelings though, and yeah, even after that, he has to be so careful with how he engages this.
He really
it's a huge choke point.
It is a massive choke point right now. Like, NXZ needs time to gather that energy on his Vipers. The base is going to fall. It has been broken. Looking at the units tab, both Vipers were sniped earlier in that previous engagement, so NXZ has to wait for them to rebuild. They're now out, and he has to slowly gather that energy, giving up another base.
Yeah, this time though, he does remake a base by the Rich Vespine Geyser. So we'll allow him to rebuild a couple of his... to rebuild his Hydras and his Banelings a little bit quicker. If he can mine from it though.
Yeah, and to be fair... I mean, it doesn't look like Raza's rotating in that direction, to be fair. He's pushing through the center of the map instead, so these fringe bases are going to be left alone for the time being, and NXZ will be able to happily mine from them, and we'll see if he can actually get this Rich Vespine base up and running. The scary thing is, though, that behind this, Raza now has the 5th. You know, he himself is slowly expanding, and these bases mean so much more for the Terran.
Yeah, he's hit the sweet spot that he needs to play a bit more of a Turtle Terran style in TVZ. Which he's going back to at the moment, and I can't say I blame him, you know. He did a ton of damage with his pushes, but he wasn't quite able to break NXZ, so he has to take a bit more of a defensive stance here.
Yeah, at least until he's maxed, and now he is at 200 supply. He's ready to push out across map with his mass, tank, lib, ghost, bio army. He does rotate over to the left-hand side again because it's waterfall. It doesn't take too long at all. The hatchery is going to fall, and NXZ, he was a little bit indecisive. He's thinking, do I want to counterattack? Do I want to fight? There's no good answer.
There is no good answer, but he's made his answer anyway. He's going straight for this 4th base location and will be able to take it out. But at what cost is what I have to ask. That's 22 SCVs being taken out. Huge start here for NXZ. But once all of that army got taken out, you know, Raza just takes that as his opportunity to reciprocate the damage.
Oh, I love
with a bit of a drop of zone.
I love this. We do have a Nidus in the main base, so NXZ does take the fresh mining base and 23 workers. He loses 2 hatcheries as a result, but kept a lot of his workers alive, so his economy can still sustain itself. And also, this move into the main hasn't been scouted. The response is slow. Lurkers are now in.
Yeah, we're talking about how there's time and a place for workers. Well, the time is right about now when you need to get some harassment damage done. The place is the main base, but despite not scouting the Nidus for too long, Raza is able to defend against that. Not quite the 4th base location, however, or the 3rd base location, however.
Yeah, so the lurkers did kind of fall in their face, but they were a great distraction. An expensive distraction, don't get us wrong, but he was able to kind of keep Raza occupied in the main base. Another mining base goes down. Raza doesn't have a bank, by the way, but he is still maxed. That's the big problem. Like, Raza hasn't been able to defend his bases, but his main army is still terrifying.
Yeah, he's maxed, and he's maxed with only 40 workers, which is important to note.
Yeah.
You say he does have a massive, massive army, some good snipes on top of the Vipers. A couple of tanks really taken out for Raza, but there's still plenty more where that came from. For our Red Terran player, NXZ doesn't have much of a bank. He has income, but not that much of a bank.
Yeah, exactly. His fresh bases, they just keep getting knocked down time and time and time again. And the scary thing is that Raza won that fight with only half his army. Like, the tanks are finally now here on the front lines. He's pushing on forward, and he's had enough of just taking out the fringe bases. He knows that he has enough to just push through the center, take out another one.
NXZ has absolutely nothing to contest what Raza has pushing across the map right now. I say right now, though, because he is still getting 8 lurkers, he is still getting as many lanes as he can. He slows his game down long enough, and he's able to pick off Raz's units in the middle of the map while he's in siege. I can absolutely see a scenario where NXZ takes this map.
Yeah, I mean, NXZ is forcing a really scrappy game here. Like, Raza himself doesn't really have much of a bank either. The supplies are slowly evening up. Of course, Raza still has an incredibly strong army, don't get us wrong. But if NXZ is able to buy enough time here with his counterattacks, then maybe he can recover. As I say that, Raza, he has no chill. Like, he just keeps on pushing.
Yeah, he's starting to lift his orbital commands, which normally would be a bit worrisome, especially with a Nidus popping out right about now. But like I said, Raza has no chill. He knows he has the army advantage, and whatever NXZ sends to run by are valuable units that aren't defending back home.
Yeah, but we'll see how this turns out here. Another hatchery is going to fall for NXZ at the same time. A lurker run by here is going to take down the mining bases of Raza. This Nidus play, this lurker play, is actually keeping NXZ in this, and it could be a win condition.
It almost feels like the Zerg version of T-Bull CTs. Just making sure that Raza can never throw down a mule or a scan.
True, but what worries me is that, sure, he's denying 2 mining bases. This is huge right now, what these lurkers are doing. But Raza does establish a base on the left-hand side. It is going to be fully mining soon, and that means that these bases aren't as crucial, as important here for Raza. Oh.
Yes, income is slowly catching back up. Lurkers here will get a couple of units, but not too many of them. But every single time, right? You gotta remember, NXZ isn't using these lurkers to get damage. He's using them to distract the army, and he picks off the freshest mining base of Raza with that.
Exactly. We were talking about how crucial this base is and how important it was that Raza got it, but now he loses it. And I agree, like, these are really expensive distractions. So again, this is still really hard to call.
It really is. I mean, Raza still has a very, very potent army, and I think he's all in right now, which could actually spell doom for NXZ.
Yeah, exactly. I think NXZ was hoping that Raza would just bounce between the bases, but again, Raza, he doesn't care, not anymore. He sims on forward, takes down a hatchery, going to take down a second. He's going for the kill, and NXZ, he needs everything at home to defend. These lurkers, we need you at home, puppy.
We need these lurkers and a whole lot more. Other than just that, a lot of Lings are just sort of trickling into their deaths right now.
Yeah, Lings are going to be able to get 2 tanks, 3 tanks for their troubles. Not bad at all, but we needed a little bit more than that. The lurkers are coming on in. Do we have a scan? We do.
Yeah, picking up the tanks is definitely a huge start for NXZ, but it is just a start. GG is called, and Raza is able to tie up our series sideways 1-1. But I gotta say, I was real worried for him for a couple of times.
Definitely, especially towards the end. GG, well played. NXZ was up against the ropes almost the entire game there, where he was really struggling to get his economy up and running, really struggling to get his bases up and running. The map itself coming into play there. But he did a really good job harassing his opponent and making it closer than it really should have been. Oh.
Yeah, honestly. I was ready to call it for Raza after his first push, like, killed 2 bases or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, some really good overall strategy from NXZ, and like you said, he was just able to make it closer than it really should have been.
Exactly. So I'm really impressed with what NXZ was able to accomplish on Waterfall, but Raza was just solid as a rock there with his push, with his aggression. After we saw how much momentum he got after taking down the 4th base of Raza, and after Raza just took a couple of 2 inefficient trades and like Raza was just NXZ took a couple of too inefficient trades. And Raza was just so on point when it came to just rotating back and forth between the left and right hand side, taking down a base every single time.
Yeah. And with that, we're going to go into our ace match, which shouldn't be too race favored, but does lend itself very, very well to longer turtle games in TVZ.
Yes, very similar to Tropical Sacrifice in that sense. This does give an advantage to more defensive players, but we'll see as we are going to be loading into our ace match, game 3. It's going to be on Data C.
C,
papi, C, all the way to the ace match. We've seen so far in this series, Game 1 was well in NXZ's hands getting map control. Game 2, Raza with the aggression was able to just starve out and just choke NXZ to death in a way. But here in Game 3, I'm hoping we get a little bit more of a back and forth, a mixture of the two.
I'm hoping we get a 12 pool as we kick it off on Data C, or conclude things on Data C. It's the complete opposite of kicking things off. We're in the bottom left-hand corner map, spawning all the way in the bottom left-hand corner. We have the Red Zerg player coming out from the land of Australia. He is NXZ.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Data C, we have the Pakistani Terran player himself representing Team Red Dragons. It is Raza.
As my expectations have been completely shattered here. My dreams have been completely shattered here as, once again, both players just playing fairly standard. I say that, but Raza hasn't thrown down a,
oh my god.
Thrown down a barracks. What?
He's crazy, Bobby. Raza pulling a bit of a Gumiho here, going for a CC first.
Wow.
Now, if there was a 12 pool, the game would have ended. Just oh,
well, I was trying to signal to NXZ over there,
Yeah, but Yaku, your game sense is crazy. Yeah. It's oh god, so a very greedy, very economic opener here from Raza. Of course, with the CC first, it does leave you very vulnerable to early pool openers. But I think he kind of played out the mind game and he's coming out on top here, recognizing that NXZ is a pretty normal, pretty standard player. There is no need to, you can take this kind of risk.
He's a pretty normal, pretty standard player in ZVT.
Yes. Good point.
But then again, he doesn't play too many of those ZVTs when he is able to practice. So, yeah, it's a really good assessment here from Raza.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is, and he's also going to be able to make use of the map itself as well. We were kind of making some comparisons to Tropical Sacrifice a little bit when it comes to the defensive position. There are just so many ramps here, so many choke points to make use of, so many side blockers in the middle of the map as well. It can be really hard to move out across the map and apply that aggression. So yeah, Raza just being a little bit greedy as a response. Not overly greedy, he's not going into third CC before factory into double. Yeah.
Before gas even.
Yeah, he's not that crazy. Which we have seen, by the way. We have seen.
Yeah, we have seen, and we may see again later on tonight. But
yeah, Honmono.
That's a little bit of a teaser.
I look forward to it. But alas, NXZ, for the time being, is just opening up standard. He goes for a little bit of an Overlord Scout, recognizing, hold up, there is no Reaper across the map. I can send my Ling across, figure out what's going on, recognize, you did go for a CC first.
Yeah, you're getting away with that CC first as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, other than the quick CC, though, Raza is just opening up pretty standard with his Hellions and with his... starport as well. No tech lab this time on the barracks, so it should just about be Liberators or Vikings in the Liberators.
Yeah, okay, so a couple of things are going on right now. One, this is the first time that Raza doesn't go for a third CC before starport, so he is committing to a more aggressive opener here. He is getting his starport much faster than he otherwise would, and again, NXZ is reading this no, sorry, actually, he scouted this. He did see the 1-1-1, and he's going for an early Roach Warren.
Yeah, he knows exactly what he can get away with here, and he's switching things up
significantly
from the previous games. Double. Oh,
it's 2-port
cores being made. It's 2-port BC.
Raza, you animal. He's going 2-port BC. He really is playing like Gumiho. Ay, ay, ay.
You'll love to see it, or at least I do. And depending on how quickly NXZ pushes with his roaches, he'll love to see it as well.
Exactly. That's the one thing, right? NXZ, he cut drones. He is not droning up anymore. He's going for a big roach push, and usually against a roach push, we want to be seeing some banshees. The problem with BCs, sure, roaches, they don't shoot up, but BCs take so long to make, and this is such a greedy move right now because he's going 2-port BC. There's no marine production. There's going to be so little to defend, and by the time the BCs come out, it's going to be too late.
And no marines, no tanks. He hasn't made any bunkers as well because he wasn't anticipating the roach follow-up coming out from NXZ.
He didn't scout. He didn't have a Reaper.
He didn't scout at all. He didn't have that Reaper, and now he is met face first with a whole bunch of roaches.
Oh, exactly. The roaches are busting on through. The boys are being pulled from the natural base. Raza knows that he cannot hold the natural. He has to try and hold the line here at the main instead. The Lings all get roasted. Very nice control there by Raza, but the boys are being pulled, and the roaches are getting a lot of damage done.
Yeah, body blocking is decent from Raza, but he doesn't really have a lot of damage dealers to take care of the roaches. Finally, he's starting to take them out, but he's lost an entire mineral line worth of SCVs in the process.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I believe we saw a scout quickly checking the vision of NXZ. He did see 2 starports. Hasn't been able to piece it together, though, that this is 2-port BC. There we go. Spores are on the way. Queens are on the way. He knows.
Yeah, Raza, though, if he just teleports across the map right now, he should be able to get some damage done before all of those defenses finish up.
Yeah, he's waiting
Maybe not quite the same amount of damage that's been dealt to him, but significant amounts of damage.
Yeah, here we go. 2 BCs, they come in. There is no Yamato. Bear that in mind. Only vanilla BCs. They are going to be able to target down one of these queens. There's a lot of transfused energy. Oh, no.
Yeah, and the target firing is a little bit split right now, despite how the opening went here for Raza. If nothing shoots up, he can obliterate the entire base, every single base of NXZ.
And what's scary is that there are 2 more BCs coming in behind this that are soon going to reinforce the 2 BCs here for Raza. NXZ, he's been losing too many queens, and it may be too late. There's a Spire on the way, but the Spire is not going to finish. It is going to be targeted down here by Raza.
Just like so. Who needs Yamato? Is what Raza says. Still has to be a little bit careful of the spore callers for the time being, but yeah, once Yamato finishes up, you can just snipe them from distance and get a little closer to the bases, the lairs, and whatnot.
Mate, this is a solid welcome back to current meta NXZ.
Yep.
2-port BC openers weren't a thing in the past. They are now, and I'm afraid that they're getting out of control. We have 5 queens right now to defend, but again, not enough energy for transfuse. Here come the reinforcing BCs, and the queens, they just can't do anything about it.
Yeah, the little gap in the creep doesn't help matters either. Snipe from the skies. Spire's looking a little bit vulnerable, and it isn't even done just yet.
Oh god, exactly. Here come those Yamatos that we were talking about. He's targeting down the Spire. We do have some focus fire, and there we go, the Spire. That's a kill, not a cancel.
The same, however, cannot be said about the BCs as they teleport out just before they get too low to survive.
They teleport out and they teleport back in. They just rotate. They tag in and out. Every single queen gets focused down. We have a Hydrogen, but it's too late. We needed the Hydrogen sooner. Hydrogens do finish up faster than Spires, and there are faster ways to get anti-air. NXZ, in desperation, is making roaches to push out across the map because he knows that he dealt so much economic damage earlier. NXZ does have more drones than his opponent. It's just nothing shoots up.
Hear me out, Light. BCs are slow. Ravagers.
Copium. Here we go. The roaches are moving out across the map. What do we have at home to defend? We have those BCs defensively that were being teleported across the map. We do have some Hydras coming out, to be fair. Oh, God, but the BCs, they just keep coming, puppy. They just keep coming.
And they don't stop coming. BCs are still being produced, by the way. Off the back of two base mining.
Yeah, am I on Copium? Like, NXZ still has a worker lead. We have a couple of Hydras coming up, but no, the Hydras, they're trickling in. They all go down as well. Roaches show up across the map, but there are BCs to defend.
Yeah, and this time there are enough BCs to actually take out the roaches. They do more than just tickle them. Plus the amount of things really, if things really get scary. I do like that NXZ seems to be using the Hydras to distract the BCs while he finishes up Aspire back home, but
yeah,
like you were saying, this is something that he needed to have done a long time ago, because at this point, Raza, on the other side of the map, he has landed his third base. He is transitioning out of this to full BC mech with his extra factories. It's going to be tough for NXZ to bounce back from this position.
it really is. The roaches are all going to get cleaned up. Raza does establish his third base, which is a terrifying thought here. NXZ still has a very healthy drone count, though, and he now has the Spire. Like, he's still in this. Things were looking real scary, real terrifying earlier, and the BC count is also terrifying. We have 7 BCs on the map right now, but NXZ, if he rallies his forces, Queens, Spores, and Corruptors, he can maybe take a fight.
Yeah, he needs to rally all of those units, though, which is a little bit of a tough ask, especially if you have to unborrow and reborrow Spore Crawlers. I'm staring at these Corruptors that are just about popping out.
Yeah, here we go. The Spore Crawlers are repositioning at the same time. Bit of a Hellion run by here is going to run into Hydras. Hydras, you don't want to use them against Hellions, but right now it's all we have to use. Corruptors are coming out. Yamatos, though, going one after the other.
Yeah, unfortunately, there just aren't enough Corruptors to really one-shot or two-shot these BCs. SCVs, hello?
SCVs are here to repair as well. A good decent amount. Half the Hydras do go down as well. We do have the combined forces here of NXZ trying to force us back, but there just isn't enough.
Yeah, if all those forces combine sooner, maybe it'd be a different story, but Raza has kept his BCs alive for long enough, and he has been making enough of them that there was nothing NXZ could have really done throughout most of this game, but now it feels especially so that Raza's BCs have gotten so... He hasn't really hit critical mass, but he has enough of them that he's just so oppressive with them.
I'd like to think 8 is critical mass, is what I'd like to think. That's 8 Yamatos, mate. That's... Oh, God. But we'll see. NXZ does force this all the way back. He still has a pretty decent drone count. He has been able to drone up behind this, but as I say that, bit of a Hellion run by here. There's nothing on the ground. No!
And for the first time in this map, Raza is even on workers with NXZ. Raza is ahead on workers against NXZ.
If it wasn't for that Hellion run by, those 14 drones mattered so much. NXZ would have still been in this. He would have been able to get this base up and running. He even takes down a BC in the middle of the map. But losing 14 workers, especially against a meching Terran player, these are losses we cannot afford. And unfortunately, just NXZ, he was just trying to defend with the bare minimum because of how the game has turned out. And the Hellion run by is a really smart decision here by Raza.
Yeah, absolutely were. First, NXZ had nothing that shoots up. Now he has nothing that shoots down.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he forced NXZ to make nothing but Corruptors, and then he just catches him off guard with these Hellion run-bys instead. We even have some Hellbats here on the left-hand side. Roaches are finally coming out to help clean this up, but at this point, even though NXZ is kind of stabilizing a little bit, Raza is miles ahead.
Yeah, it's to say the least. And he's getting all of his tech, he's getting all of his upgrades. Magfield has just finished up 4 Cyclones to help out a little bit better against those Corruptors. 1-1 is about to finish up. He's getting more planetaries, he's getting more factories. He has been non-stop producing SCVs, so now he can just main art them to the fresh bases. And what can that exactly do from here other than turtle up, which unfortunately isn't as easy to do as a Zerg player compared to a Terran player.
I mean, he's been droning heavily, droning very heavily, and it does impact his overall army supply right now, which is a bit of a downside. But if he's able to survive this next minute or so and get a base up and running, he will be okay. We do see already, oh, the BCs, there was no teleports there. One BC already going down, the second BC goes down.
And that's a nice start here for NXZ. He loses a couple of Corruptors, but Corruptors are a lot cheaper than BCs are.
Yeah, exactly. The downside is that NXZ now has to find some use for these Corruptors. Like, Raza is transitioning away from BCs onto a ground-focused army instead, and these Corruptors don't have that much utility as a result, so NXZ has to either just try and shut down the BCs and maybe try and caustic spray down some buildings. We see NXZ double expanding. He now has a 5th base up and running. Like, it's quite important that he holds onto this base.
Yeah, that's kind of difficult to do when you have a mostly Ling ground army against Blue Flame Hellions and Cyclones of Magfield.
Yeah, you're not wrong, mate. You're not wrong. Thankfully, because of the creep and because of the high ground, NXZ is able to defend and deflect those first initial cyclones. At the same time, Corruptors, they go in and they force a reaction out of these BCs. Again, NXZ, he's trying to hunt them down.
Yeah, other than the BCs, I mean, the cyclones were sent across the map. There's not that much anti-air. There's a lot of SCVs to repair, though. So the Corruptors will leave, having taken out just one BC, but it's something for them to do right now. Otherwise, they're just going to be dead supply.
Exactly. At least they were able to pick up a couple of those BCs, as you were saying. We do see that Raza is expanding, taking a 5th base. Raza keeping up on the base count with his Zerg opponents, and that's why I still feel like Raza is in a pretty comfortable position. But NXZ he's going for the right moves. You know, we have a Hive on the way, we have Infestors on the way. We've been really lacking in Spellcasters, and they are so crucial, especially against mech. And he knows how to play against mech. You know, it may be a different variation, maybe like BC mech, but for the most part, he knows how to handle this.
Yeah, he absolutely should. Couple of fungals, maybe a neural or two on tanks or Thors can really start to turn things around. He just needs a lot more time before he can really round off his army.
Yeah, and I'm really impressed with how he's been able to keep the creep spread up as well, despite the fact that we've had a mobile force of Cyclones and Hellions. We do see bases taken on the bottom right-hand corner. Like, NXZ is stabilizing quite well, despite the shaky start. It just really goes to show, like, the mental fortitude of NXZ. I almost want to say, like, he did not crumble under the pressure. And boy, was there a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, 2 games in a row, it looked like he was dead, but he was able to extend the game for a lot longer than I think any of us really expected.
His mental is on point, man. I a lot of respect here. A lot of respect for him to just to stand strong against the tide, against all odds. And
it takes a lot of mental fortitude to resist the urge to smudge.
To resist the urge to smudge against the 2-port BC, puppy. Oh my god. Now we have a second Spire on the way, so it looks like NXZ is getting ready to go into Broodlords. We do have a nice fungal here on a large portion of these Cyclones.
And an amazing follow-ups around with the Lings and the Banes. Mech, you know, compared to Bio, it's not a cheap unit composition to make him, you know? Compared to the previous 2 games where Raza could trade Marines and Marauders and still trade efficiently, the same can't really be said with Hellbats and especially Cyclones.
Yeah, what I'm worried about is that this entire game, or after the BC opener, Raza's been losing Hellions, he's been losing Cyclones, but the tank count has stood strong. Looking at the unit stat, we have 16 tanks, mate. Like, this is the power of Terran Mech. He's pushing on forward. We have Lingbane to defend. We still don't have any Vipers, and can NXZ stop the tanks?
Yeah, the Banelings crash on in, and they don't exactly trade efficiently. A lot of them get taken out.
True.
But I feel that NXZ may have lost too much of his army too soon. I say that, but tanks aren't exactly a very mobile force either, are they?
Thankfully for NXZ, there's no buffer here. We need more Hellions, we need more Cyclones, we need something to support these tanks. Just pure tank is not going to cut it. At the same time, Roaches, they come in and they catch a free Thor.
Absolutely huge pickoff right now. That's going to be the main source of anti-air for Raza as this game continues. These Corruptors are going to go pretty much uncontested. They can snipe BCs, Ravens, and even pick off, evidently pick off CCs when there's no attention on them.
Yeah, exactly. A base goes down. Thankfully for Raza, there was another orbital to replace it, so not going to lose too much mining here, but NXZ, oh my god, it's been insane. He's just been able to keep up with the creep spread. He is taking every base on the map. He is taking control of this. He was looking the most vulnerable when Raza pushed out, but as we saw, he just barely didn't have enough to keep going, and now NXZ has been able to tech up even further and get his 2 Spires up, get his tech up.
And you know, at the start of this game, if you told me we would be returning to a more standard, you know, Terran Turtles up against Zerg who takes the rest of the map, I wouldn't have believed you.
I would
not have believed you, but yeah.
I like, you're crazy.
We are getting... This is a natural evolution of TVZ on Data C, evidently.
Evidently, mate, evidently. Again, it's so, like, the defensive position for both Zerg and Terran is just too good on this map. They can't kill each other. It looks like Raz has been able to hold on. He takes the, sorry, NXZ has been able to hold on. Takes down 10 SCVs, denies onto the mining base, even takes down a bit of the production.
Again, whatever he can really get done with these Corruptors is going to be valuable. He has reestablished a bank somehow, He has a very high mineral and gas income. Somehow, he just needs to trade out the more, I don't want to say useless units of his army, but these Corruptors are pretty useless right now.
Yeah, looking at the units tab, we still have 3 BCs, to be fair, and the Ravens, they can provide some value, and as soon as we get a Greater Spire, they can be morphed into Broodlords. Meanwhile, Raza completely out of position, only 2 tanks here to defend, his army nowhere to be found.
Yeah, he's starting to split half his army up right now, have it coming home to defend, which is about all he needs, especially with the anti-armor missile. Absolutely huge start to this engagement, and it seems like Raza just doesn't have the numbers on his side.
Exactly. Where were the sensor towers? Where was the army? Raza a little bit more concerned with taking a fresh mining base than defending his more defenseless ones, his more vulnerable ones, and just like that, NXZ, he's got some momentum.
Yeah.
Mate.
I did not think that was something we would say in this map particularly after all those BCs rocked up.
We're the B stream and we're on a tight schedule, but regardless of how this game goes, I so want to get NXZ in a call for an interview. Just for his mindset in this game, mate. In this series. Regardless, he's able to deny another mining base here on the right-hand side, actually catching fire. Thankfully, there are workers here to repair, to keep it alive. Ooh, as Raza, like any kind of pushing power that he once had, is now gone. And NXZ, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the Greater Spire. I'm waiting for the Broodlords.
Yeah, Hive was already finished a while ago. Huge fungal on these BCs. Not quite able to teleport, but unfortunately the Corruptors were just a little too far away.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Raza, he's diversifying his army a little bit. We have 3 Thors in total, not too many. Again, mainly an anti-ground focused army right now, which is what he's up against, as NXZ is not stopping with the Ling Bane. Roach Ravager once again. The triangular third is looking exposed. We have 3 tanks in the back line. But that's not going to be enough to keep these bases alive.
Yeah, well, kind of Planetary Fortress gets taken out, and it's done its job of just zoning out as much of the army as possible and trying to force a choke point over there, but unfortunately for Raza, NXZ, it was very quick to remax and very quick to come back and take out this orbital command once and for all. Not a lot of SCVs here to repair, but NXZ isn't quite able to get it to burn down. Yeah,
it does survive in the end. Meanwhile, this may be a little bit premature here for NXZ. Finally, Raza is fighting with his full force of his tanks. Oof.
Yep, we're talking a lot about what NXZ was doing, but while all of this was going on, Raza has been trading out SCVs. He's remaxed earlier on for a while, and he's not too far from remaxing once again with a much higher army supply and a much more powerful force too. NXZ's strength in his army right now lies in how cheap it is. It lies in how he's able to just trade as inefficiently as possible. Raza, however, just has the better army at the end of the day.
He really does, and there was a questionable fight there for NXZ. So much of his Ling Bane was used up taking down planetaries. He's going to go for a massive counterattack. He knows that he cannot fight this mech army, so he tries to force him to turn around. He will take down the fresh mining base here for Raza, and Raza is splitting up his army a little bit. You know that this army towards the south isn't as scary as it once was. It is unsieged. NXZ, he's thinking about it. He wants to maybe try and dive.
He wants to go for the surround. A lot of the techs are unsieged. Only 3 of them are sieged up right now. And he is able to collapse on top of his army, but again, he just trades Banelings for pretty much nothing.
Yeah, but you know what? Here is that tech switch. Broodlords are now out for NXZ. Is it going to be enough? We have 3 Thors here for Raza. I don't think that's going to be enough. If the target firing is good enough, if NXZ can take down the anti-air, he can clean up this army.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much of a buffer for the Thors either. To be fair, the Lings are getting on top of things. The Thors are a little bit preoccupied with what's killing them underground, and the Broodlords are able to completely wipe out this mech army in the middle of the map. Raza has spent his bank. He can't remax anymore.
He has no mining. He has 1 mining base right now here in the top left, and that is it. Because of the constant aggression, because of the constant run-bys, NXZ has crippled the economy of Raza. Raza once had a terrifying standing army. No longer is it standing.
It's lying down underground.
Oh my god, and the Broodlords are finally here. This entire game, NXZ has been working on the Broodlord upgrades. He's been slowly working towards this tech switch. This is the end game. This is his end goal, and he is finally here. And now that he's here, he's going to be able to take down the only mining base of Raza.
Remember how this game started off with NXZ having nothing that shot up against Raza's BCs?
Yes.
What a complete 180 we find ourselves in.
How's it feel, Raza? Huh? How's it feel? Oh my god. They have a couple of Ravens coming in for harassment. Yo, they're going to be able to take down a lot of these workers. Meanwhile, Heli and Ramai on the right-hand side as well. So NXZ is losing. He's losing drones. Like, if we look at the worker count, we are actually surprisingly similar.
Yeah, NXZ ahead, but not by much. His strength really lies in the fact that he has a couple more mining bases, but not that many. There's not much of a buffer for these Brute Lords, and these Thors are having a very good time shooting for it, but it is not going to be enough in the end. Raza, unfortunately, has been